Welcome back. Well, we're still talking some sports. I tell you what, the national level now, it was probably fair to say a rough week for DC fans.
Yeah, but what a series ended up being. Washington and Atlanta. Unfortunately, Paul Pierce called game a little bit too late last night. A lot of reaction from that series. Our very own Angela Santoro has more.
Thanks, guys. Yes, a very tough week for DC fans. Earlier in the week, the Capitals got the loss to the Rangers, and then just last night, the Wizards season came to a heartbreaking end and in a loss to the Atlanta Hawks. Now, we have Comcast Sportsnet's Wizards reporter Ben Standing joining us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Now, taking it back to last night, the Wiz thought that they had tied things up with Paul Pierce's three at the buzzer, only to find out that it did not count and it would end the series. What was the team's reaction following the game?
Really, in the bigger picture, it leaves the Wizards asking the big what-if question. What if John Wall doesn't hurt his hand? Even though he played the last two, can't say he's 100% with 5 fractures in his hand. And yet, the last 4 games basically came down to the last possession. The Wizards easily could have won this series under the scenario they played, let alone if John Wall was healthy. And so to have that scenario there combined with this shot that just painfully is released a split second late, that's just going to be a tough one to take for them for a while.
It most definitely will. Now, we're going to stay with Pierce for just a second. Now, reports have been saying that Bruce Bowen thinks that Pierce will be back in Washington for at least another year. Any thoughts on that?
When we went into the locker room last night, while everybody else was basically getting dressed and they're ready to go, Pierce is still sitting in his uniform in front of his locker, dejected. He was really obviously taking it all in and can't even imagine how many thoughts are going through his head, not just about that shot, but about his career. Could this be the last game of what's been a brilliant Hall of Fame career? If you make me pick right now, I'm going to say he comes back, but he says he's thinking about it. You take him at his word.
Well, the truth does not lie, and it was such a tough way to go out last night. Every athlete, though, does have a competitive nature to them. And in saying that, how do you see the Wizards bouncing back next season?
John Wall and Bradley Beal, so much of what the Wizards' future is reliance on if they can figure out how to add a key piece or two to this team. I don't see why they can't compete again. And they were painfully close to advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. If these guys keep progressing, they get some good health and some breaks go their way. Maybe next year's their year.
All right, well, great season for the Wiz. Ben, thank you again for joining us tonight. Spencer, Trey, the biggest difference for me this series, and maybe I'm stating the obvious, was losing John Wall. Now, I said it before that health would be a major factor in the playoffs, and I think that was one of the main issues against the Hawks. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, losing him hurt that team. I mean, he's the engine that gets them going. But I got to say, I got to eat a little crow right now. At the start of the year, I was down on this whole hype about getting Paul Pierce. I didn't think it was much of a pickup, literally, at all. And I just really statistically it wasn't huge, but it was the moments in which he stepped up that were huge. He should have had 3 potentially either game-winning or tying shots in one series alone. I mean, his veteran leadership was huge. If they can get him to come back and have him another year, have a healthy John Wall in the playoffs, I don't see why they can't make a run at it.
That's why they call him the truth, man. I agree with Angela in the fact that health played a role in this series, but I refuse to underestimate how important that one missed rebound by Nene was in Game 5. That was a serious game. Game 5. The Wizards could have took a 3-2 lead and go back home with it. Instead, they went home. They went home down 3-2, and that whole play right there just kind of tilted the whole series right there. Yeah. Atlanta came home and put them away in D.C. That was a big play.
Besides Paul Pierce, there was a lot of rookie-type mistakes, a lot of growing that this team needs to do to kind of get used to the playoffs. All right, well, it's time for another final commercial break, but coming up next, it's what you have all been waiting for, our top plays of the week. Keep it right here.
Hi, my name's Tim Ward from Delmar High School. I pitch and play second base, and you're watching Delmar Sports Insider.